Hello, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and we are back with another chapter of Treasures of the Snow by Patricia St. John. We are getting close to the end of this book, and then I have to go back and put the beginning of it online. This is chapter 24. Nette, Dani, and just him leave home. A few hours later, Nette, muffled in a woolly hood and coat, sat in a big wooden rocking chair, smiling at Lucian, who was sitting up in bed with his chin resting on his knees. He was rather pale and tired, but otherwise well and happy. "Tell me all about it," urged Nette, her eyes big with admiration and astonishment. "Everyone says it was terribly brave of you. Tell me right from the beginning, Lucian, and what it was like on the top." Lucian wrinkled his forehead. It was nice to be called brave, and he would have liked to make a good story of it, but somehow it all seemed very far away and difficult to talk about, almost as though it had been a dream. He did not realize that his body had been too cold and weary to let his mind notice anything much. "Well," he began, "I went up to the old man first and asked him for some money. And then I got my skis on the way down and skied down to the valley and climbed through the woods across the river. And then when I got to the top, it was very windy. And then I went down the other side." "Of course you did," interrupted Nette impatiently, "or you'd never have got there. But tell me about it properly, Lucian. What did you feel like? Did you have any adventures? Were you frightened? And did you nearly die? And what was it like on top?" Lucian was silent for a few moments. All the afternoon he had been wondering whether there would be a chance to tell Nette, and now that the chance was here, he didn't even know how to begin. "Yes," he said at last, rather slowly, twisting his fingers in the sheet. "I was awfully frightened a little way before the top. I nearly came back, Nette. Do you remember telling me how you used to hate me so, and how you asked Jesus to come into your heart, and how he made you quite fond of me instead?" "Yes," replied Nette eagerly. "Of course I remember. Why, Lucian?" "Because," explained Lucian shyly, "something like that happened to me when I was feeling so frightened. I remembered that text your grandmother taught us about, perfect love casting out fear. And I asked Jesus to cast out mine, and I stopped feeling so terribly afraid all at once." "Did you really?" asked Nette, deeply interested. "Then I suppose Jesus came into your heart as well as mine, and then your being afraid had to go away, just like my hating you had to go away. I suppose it's all really the same, Lucian, whether you're afraid or don't like people, or whether you cheat or don't speak the truth. Whatever is the matter with you, when Jesus comes in, I suppose there just isn't room for it anymore." "Yes," agreed Lucian thoughtfully. "I suppose you could put any word on the end of that text. Fear, or being selfish, or telling lies, or being lazy or cross, and say that perfect love cast out any of them. And when Jesus comes in, perfect love comes in too, doesn't it?" "Yes," said Nette, "I suppose it does." And they sat with their chins resting on their hands and talked about it in the strange white of twilight. Neither suggested turning on the light, because it was nicer talking in the dark. It was not till Nette was walking home across the starlit snow with the great arms of the mountain about her that she fully realized that this was her last evening at home for a long time. As the realization came, she found that she had a sudden pain in her throat and her eyes were misty. She broke into a fast run and arrived almost breathless in the warmth of the front room. Father was still over in the cattle shed, but Grandmother was sitting sewing a button on Annette's clean striped pinafore. Their clothes, neatly folded and mended, were tied in 2 bundles on the table, all ready for morning. Dani lay fast asleep in the bed with all of his kittens with him as a last treat. "Grandmother," cried Annette, and ran straight into the old woman's arms and burst into tears. Grandmother let her cry for a time, and then she drew up the stool, and Annette sat down and leaned against Grandmother's knees while Grandmother talked. She talked about the home Annette was going to, the work she would have to do, and the joy of seeing Dani made well. Talked so gaily and bravely that Annette felt brave and gay too, and never knew that deep down in her heart Grandmother was saying to herself, "What shall I do tomorrow night and all the nights after, when the stool at my feet is empty and there's no sleeping little boy in the bed in the corner?" And then, because it was getting late and they must be up early, Annette fetched the big Bible from the shelf, as she always did at bedtime, and read the evening portion to Grandmother. "We'll read the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians tonight," said Grandmother, as Annette rested the great book on her knees. "It is a chapter I should like you to remember all the time you are away, but instead of the word charity, use the word love. They mean the same thing, but you will understand it better." So Annette read it right through, and when she had finished, Grandmother said, "The verse I want you to take away with you and remember specially is verse 4. Read it again, Annette." So Annette read it again, slowly and carefully. "Love suffereth long and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up." "Now," said Grandmother, folding her hands on the Bible and looking at Annette through her spectacles, "you tell me that you have asked the Savior into your heart, and he has come in and brought his love with him, the kind of love we were reading about. You're going to look after little children, and you're a child yourself. They won't always be good to you. Often you will feel cross and impatient and bad-tempered, but the love of Jesus is long-suffering and kind. Ask him to meet those cross, bad-tempered thoughts with his love, and you'll find they will leave. Then you are going to a big house, and you will see fine things that you will never possess. Sometimes you may feel discontented and jealous, but remember, the love of Jesus in your heart is never envious. And if your heart is full of his love, there won't be any room for discontentment. You are going to be a servant in a house of children. I don't suppose you will always get much notice taken of you. Often you will want your work to be seen and praised and made a fuss over. But remember, the love of Jesus in you never pushes itself forward and never wants to be noticed. And his love can make you go on doing your work quietly and faithfully, whether anyone notices you or not. Remember, Jesus is your master, and you are working to please him. Keep your heart full of the love of Jesus. Read about it and think about it. And when wrong thoughts knock at the door, don't try to keep them out yourself. Ask the Savior to open the door for you and tell them there is no room for them in a heart that is full of his love. And they will have to go away. "Like the dark when you let the light in," agreed Annette, thoughtfully fingering her braids. Then she kissed her grandmother and ran across to the cattle shed to spend the last half hour before bed with her father. Early next morning, at the hour when the valley is gray and the peaks are silver, the whole family drove to the station in the mule cart and arrived half an hour too early because they were so afraid of missing the train. So they stood on the platform among the milk cans, watching the light creep down toward the forest and waiting for Monsieur Gavette, who joined them some 20 minutes later. Annette carried their luggage in a big brown paper parcel, and her hand was clasped tightly in her father's. Dani, in his cloak and hood, seemed very shy and kept edging off behind the milk cans. He looked anxious and seemed unwilling to be hugged when it came time to saying goodbye. But the train was already far down the valley before Annette understood why. Then she noticed strange movements under the cloak as though Dani were having the hiccups. "What is that under your cloak, Dani?" she asked, gazing in astonishment at the heaving garment. Dani went pink. "It's only one, Nette," he replied nervously. "One what?" inquired Annette, glancing anxiously up at Monsieur Gavette. But the doctor, deep in a book, was not attending. "Just him," explained Dani, and undid a button. The face and the whiskers of a white kitten appeared for an instant, and then withdrew into the shelter of a cloak. "Dani!" cried Annette, truly scandalized. "You're a very, very naughty boy. You know grandmother said you couldn't have kittens in the hospital. I don't know what we shall do with him." Dani gazed thoughtfully out of the window and said nothing. He couldn't think of a single excuse for his wickedness, but under his cloak he gave the white kitten a secret squeeze, and the white kitten curled his warm body against Dani's and purred like a little steam engine. Neither of them felt the least bit sorry for what he had done. That is the end of chapter 24. And this is Grandma Carla, and I love you.